It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler, as Josh Getzoff said, and with me, as always, like Josh said, is Smitty. That was new to me, so that was the first time for me to see that. But be sure to follow us on all of our social medias, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. That's
Threads.
And go subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Hit the like button, leave a 5-star review wherever you can. And then also go check out some of the links. We're going to have a new link in every single one of the shows that we are going to have from now until Christmas time. We have set off on our Rocket Around the 412. This is year six. Crazy.
Over $25,000 raised. Yeah.
It's absolutely nuts. And as if any of you don't know, in year 6, so for the past several years, Smitty and I have, along with the help of all of you, have helped to raise money to help out families in our local community in the 724 and 412 areas. So we've been able to help out several children, provide Christmas for them throughout the past 6 years. We're hoping to continue to do so as well. And we actually announced the other day that we're also going to continue our partnership with the Salvation Army and helping them out. It's Christmas time with you have the wording better than I do. What's it called?
The Angel Tree.
Angel Tree. Yes. Yeah. We're going to continue to do that, as well as the individual families that we will provide Christmas for. But yeah, we kicked it off on July 1st. It's started every year in July. It's like Christmas in July. There you go. But yeah, so if all of you could go check out that link, it'll be at the top of the description, in each and every one of these shows moving forward as we go on towards December. But yeah, Rocking Around the 412 year 6, excited for it.
This is the only time that we talk about this part of it specifically, because otherwise I'm going to get emotional on every single episode that we do from this point to Christmas. And I don't want that to happen. I don't think anybody wants that to happen. But with that announcement being the case, the reason that it was is last year, if you guys remember, when I reached out to Kaylee after we lost Dalton and we wanted to provide Christmas for Isla, what she wanted to do with that money instead was to, reach out to Salvation Army and adopt kids from their Christmas tree. They originally thought we were going to take on like 3 kids. We adopted 15 for Christmas last year with that money. And so to be able to do that last year, Kaylee and Isla want to continue to be involved with it. She already reached out to me and told me that. I had like a 45-minute conversation today with Mary Kay, who's the director over there at the Salvation Army, and just making that happen. And to be able to do it in Dalton's name, I mean, to just obviously a tragic situation, and talked about it with Kaylee because actually, just the 9-month anniversary of it happening would have been the 2nd of this month. And that's when she reached out to me and said like, hey, I don't know, I saw that you kicked off the fundraising already. Just know that like, I want to be involved still. Isla's, getting older. She's starting to ask more questions about her dad. And I want to be able to continue on his legacy. And that's what we're going to be able to do with doing this. So to be able to do this in his name, with the Salvation Army, it means the absolute world to me. I know it means the world to you. And I'm really excited about this year. Not that I've ever been not excited about a year, but I think this year specifically is going to be even more special. Just having that attachment to it. Along with that, unfortunately, there was another classmate of ours, and we were also, me, Chris, and Dalton were all in the same homeroom in high school. So another classmate of ours, Chris Karenbauer, who passed away in 2020, his family started a food pantry in his name. And last year, with money that was left over, I went shopping with his twin brother, Spence, and bought stuff to fill the pantry. And we're going to do that again. I mean, it's like maybe $100, $150 to do so. But just to be able to keep friends of mine and classmates of mine and friends of so many that I graduated with, their names going through this mission. I can't say it enough, but it means the world to me. So thank you all that donate every single year. The link is live, so you guys can donate right now, share it right now. We appreciate it, as we always do. We appreciate the support. And yeah, like I said, that's the only time I'm going to get like really in depth with the Salvation Army stuff, because I know every single time that I talk about it, especially because there's kids involved, That's what really gets me. So, yeah, really excited about this year.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Can we talk about threads for a second though, real quick? It's like a little bit of an icebreaker to transition here, because I feel like it came out and I didn't even know it was a thing. And then I got like an Instagram notification that somebody else that I follow on Instagram made an account or made their first post or whatever. So I was like, what is this? And then I go on Twitter and see people like tweeting screenshots of their threads accounts. And I'm like, is this like people jumping ship right now? Like, is that what it was? People have still been on Twitter since then. It wasn't like mass exodus, but like, I was like, what is happening? So I obviously made an account. We made an account for around the 412. It's been kind of fun. I think it's better at launch than like a lot of apps have been. There's obviously like things that I'm like, okay, like right off the bat, like the timeline, you don't want to see people you don't want to follows, or anything like that. You can't direct message. It would be nice if you can edit stuff on there. There's some things that obviously need to be worked out, but I think like at launch, it's one of the better apps that we've had.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The whole Twitter stuff going on. I didn't even know what was happening whenever Elon had the whole 6,000 tweets versus 600 tweets, and I got a notification, or not a notification, but a thing just saying like your megabytes are up, and I was like, what the heck is this? But I think it was interesting because weren't there a couple others? Weren't there like Blue Sky? And
so that's coming. That is like in a beta. You have to like request access to it right now.
Okay,
it's not live, like public.
And then there was one other one that people were joining before Threads.
Oh, Spoutable or something.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
There were a couple that popped up over like the past week, and then Threads was just like overnight. Basically, like everybody joined yesterday, it felt like, as a recording. So I guess on Wednesday, it seemed like everybody just joined. But it's interesting. I personally, I don't think that it's going to overtake Twitter, and
it's hard to envision anything doing that. Like,
yeah, I don't think there's an app that can, like, I would have to say, like, imagine today. I mean, it's so hard because it was such a long time ago, but imagine if Vine were still around, would TikTok be as big as it is? So like, because Vine was the original, and then TikTok, and I know they're a little bit different, but Threads and Twitter are practically like the same with their differences, but it's the same concept. I just can't imagine something overtaking Twitter.
Well, that's the thing is like, Elon got to start all the way up here with Twitter. It's while we're having this conversation, but like, I think the only way that I would give it a chance to is if like you had to pay for it. Like there was
if you had to pay for Twitter, I'm jumping ship. I'm not paying for Twitter.
There would have to not be a free option, I think, in order for it to really go down.
Yeah. I agree. But yeah, until then, Twitter is still the king of like social medias, I think. Well, I guess Facebook is technically king, but that's for a bunch of boomers. And Smitty whenever he deletes his Twitter for like a week.
I've been getting more into Reddit though too, just because I'm waiting for the time that I actually come across like somebody breaking news on Reddit. Like that's what I want. I want the we're going to talk about Erik Karlsson because we're about to, kind of transition here into Pens talk. And I would love if that trade somehow got broken from Reddit. So that's what I'm waiting for.
Reddit's a wild place. You can find a lot of interesting subreddits.
Yeah. I've come across a few of them already. Yeah. But okay, what's crazy about the whole Twitter thing that we were just talking about though is that happens like not that Elon's like, oh, I wonder, let me set this up to go down during NHL free agency, but it happened to be that day. So it's like terrible day for it to happen for us NHL fans. The Penguins start off kind of quiet. So let's just go through this. Now, I don't know that I'm going to have the exact, I tried to have them in order in the way that they happened. I'm not sure if I got it 100% here. Actually, no, take a step back because the day after we recorded last week with Josh, they traded for Reilly Smith. It's been so long, I feel like, since we recorded, and it has been 5 days.
I feel like the Reilly Smith trade was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. They traded for Reilly Smith, and that was kind of one of those cases we were talking about leading up to this, where those cap strap teams with the salary cap only going up $1 million, we're going to have to find ways to shed salary, and teams that had space were going to get really good players for basically free. The Penguins trade the original pick that they acquired in the Teddy Bluder deal from Vegas back to Vegas to get Reilly Smith. So Teddy Bluder for Reilly Smith essentially is the deal here. I've always been a fan of Reilly Smith's game. I think that immediately, I know he's, in his 30s. He's 32. But still, when you look at, he has 6 seasons above 60 or 50 points. Even what he did even last year, that playoff run was really good. One of the original members of the misfit line and that first team in Vegas. I think automatically he's like their best player in terms of transition as a winger. I'm sorry, not obviously better than Sid in transition, but he's their best winger in transition. Like, he just brings something to the table that I don't think was there on the roster already. Now, Sullivan said immediately following this that it didn't necessarily shut the door on Jason Zucker. However, Kyle Dubas, post free agency media availability, said that it kind of did. So it was funny to hear Kyle Dubas say, yeah, after we acquired Reilly, that was kind of, the writing on the wall. I don't think he used those words, but essentially, like, the writing was on the wall.
Every fan knew that. Like, as soon as I saw that trade, that basically slammed the door shut on a Zucker return. You're doing a similar salary for a top 6 player. You're not going to bring back Zucker in that case. So that was the only, what I would call like a downside to the trade. But for the actual trade itself, you gave up nothing essentially for Reilly Smith. And I get that he, like you said, he's 32 years old, so it doesn't really help with the age department in getting younger, but he's still a very productive player. And he plays off the rush really well, which is really good for Sullivan's system. I think he immediately slides in, and I would assume would be Malkin's left winger. So
although
basically taking place of the where Zucker played.
I've watched some stuff. He's played his best hockey on the right side. I wonder if, now I'm not saying the Penguins do this, I think he would benefit from playing on Sid's right wing and having Rust drop down and playing Raquel on left wing for Gino, and then Rust on the right wing for Gino.
Okay. No, that
that's
makes sense.
I envision it. I think it's going to happen the way that you said. Personally, what I said would be what I tried first.
Yeah. No, I can see that. But yeah, I think it's a great trade. I think that you maybe get a little more scoring than you would have than you got with Zucker, even though Zucker had a great year. But I do think that the trade itself, and it was surprising because normally, like, when you think about like trades, or at least maybe I'm just used to like hearing trades before they happen with the Penguins. I feel like this one just kind of came out of nowhere, similar to like a Ron Hextall type of trade, except this was actually a good one. But
I feel like the insiders weren't ready for it because they were all getting ready for free agency.
Yeah, I think that could be the case. But I like it. I like it, and it's only two years, so it's not like a long, lengthy contract we traded for. And at worst, he's only here for 2 years. So yeah, I think that the trade's really good. I think he's going to fit in the system, and despite the age, I think he's still going to be a really productive player in Pittsburgh.
$5 million each of the next 2 seasons. So I think that like let's go. The thing for me is, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't do this, when we acquired him and it was like, okay, the writing is on the wall that Jason Zucker is gone. We at the time we would have thought Jason Zucker is going to get a long-term deal in free agency. So we were like, okay with it, knowing that Jason Zucker only got that 1-year deal in Arizona for what he did. Obviously, probably a little bit of a higher AAV than what we had talked about and we're comfortable giving him, but it was only 1 year. So that's, you give and take. Would you still have rather have had Reilly Smith on the roster, or would you have just given Zucker that 1 year, $5.1 million?
See, I don't think the 1 year, $5.1 million would have been on the table for Zucker in Pittsburgh. I think if it was going to be Zucker coming back, I don't think it's a 1 year deal. I think it's at least like a 2 or 3. So if that's the case, then yeah, I'd be open to just bringing Zucker back on the 1 year that he got. But I just don't think that would have been a possibility in Pittsburgh. I think that if Pittsburgh was going to bring him back, it was going to be, and not a possibility because he wouldn't have taken that deal. I just think that the Penguins would have offered him a longer term deal.
Oh, so you're saying the Penguins would have wanted more to give him more than one. They wouldn't have only wanted to do one. Okay.
I am under the assumption that I think that the Penguins organization would have given him like a 3-year deal.
Yeah. I mean, I see that's the what I do like about the Smith deal is it is, more than just 1 year left on it. You have that flexibility for 2 years. You pretty good player at $5 million, which, $5 million sounds pretty high, but he's definitely, in my opinion, bringing that to the table. Like I said, he's got 6 different years with 50 plus points. That includes last season. Yeah, I think that I'm in agreement on that. I don't know that you can bring, or how much health was factoring into this decision, because Jason Zucker relatively healthy last year. but Reilly Smith has missed a total of like 5 games in his NHL career. Like he's always available. So how much does that play into their mind too in terms of this?
And
like,
Zucker as a Penguin
this guy's
missed a lot of time over his
right.
tenure in Pittsburgh.
Now you could say those are like anomaly injuries, and like you can't bank on Reilly Smith being healthy all of next season and Zucker getting hurt. Like you don't know that those things are going to happen. But I think it's a safe bet to make for the Penguins that, like, you know, Reilly Smith has a better chance of staying healthy based off his body of work than Jason Zucker does. So I could see that kind of playing in the decision to go the route they did too. You get a similar player production wise, a similar cap hit, but a guy that's been more available.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the way it goes down. I'm excited to add Reilly Smith to the roster for 2 seasons. Okay, now we can get into the free agency. I kind of jumped the gun there saying that we were going to dive into that. The first thing, this was actually the guy had, it looked like, agreed to terms with a different team, Matt Nieto, with Edmonton prior to noon. And then like noon is when like things start to becoming like official when they get out. All of a sudden, like noon hits, and it's like, okay, change of plans. Matt Nieto signing with Pittsburgh, and even like the tweet said, like, long story. Like, so Matt Nieto comes to the Penguins, 2-year deal, $900K per season. This is, to me, like, I mean, you look up fourth liner, a picture of Matt Nieto is probably going to pop up. Scores 10 goals, kills penalties, still got pretty good foot speed for a 30-year-old. I like this signing. There's going to be ones where I'm either like meh or don't like that we're going to talk about down the line. But genuinely, I think for what he brings to the table, $900K is a bargain for a guy that you can plug and play on the fourth line and brings what he does to the table.
Yeah, sub $1 million. I think this is a great deal to make. You had to have improvements in your bottom 6. He's not going to be the type of improvement where you're going to get scoring. But I do think that the defense drastically improves with Matt Nieto.
He did have what, though, last year? Like 10? I mean, if he got 10 goals from a fourth liner, it was 8 or 10. I don't.
Let's see. He had. Oh, he was on 2 teams. He had 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. I had to like look at. I looked at it weird because he got traded to Colorado. Yeah, he had 12 points or 12 goals, and what is this? 24 points. So. Not bad for a fourth liner, especially like anyone making sub 1 million. If you score 12 goals, that's great.
I mean, that's kind of like Matt Cullen-ish, I feel like, when he was on the fourth line here.
Yeah, and minus like 8 years in age. I think it was pretty. that's pretty good as well. But yeah, and then getting a guy like you said that can play the special teams, play on the penalty kill. I think this is a fine signing. I'm interested to see like where he plugs in on the fourth line. Like whether he's right or left.
It got more. I don't want to like spoil our thoughts on the other signings by bringing them into that, but it got more complicated as the day went on, and they added a couple more guys for the bottom 6. So yeah, I agree. But the next one, Noel Acciari, kind of the same type of deal there with a bottom 6 player. They give him 3 years, $2 million per. This was the one one of the ones where I was like, for what he brings to the table, it's okay. Probably one of those things where it's like, would rather give him 2 years, got to give him 3 in free agency to win that bidding war. I'm okay with it. I like the player. I think a lot of people are going to get some like Brandon Tanev vibes going on, just kind of flies around the ice like a maniac. Can bring some offense. He was actually last year, if you remember, when we were talking about like some trade targets, when he was with St. Louis before he got traded to Toronto, I brought him up. And then obviously he goes to Toronto. Nice little playoff run. I thought he was a productive player for them, kind of fit his role nicely. I wish that, I mean, we're going to talk about the other center they added here. If they would have done better at 3C on the day, like if they acquired somebody else, I would feel a lot better about this. But to me, this is like a fourth line center, not a whole lot more upside than what's on the surface, but I like him. Like, I think this is a fine deal. If it was 2 years, $2 million, I love it because it's a third year. I'm more like, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be honest, I don't think that there's like a huge difference between him and Nieto. Like, I don't think there's a $1.9 million difference. But I understand if you want to get certain players, you have to pay them in free agency to get them. He had 14 goals last year, 2 in the playoffs with Toronto. But I think it's fine. Like it's retooling your bottom 6, which is a lot of what Saturday was. And so I think for what you're paying, I think it's fine. There's not really much to really say about it. Also, he has a modified no trade clause, which is interesting for a fourth liner. But it's interesting.
Is that becoming more of like Josh Archibald signed for like $800K with Tampa, but got a 15-team no trade clause?
I don't know. Maybe he just really hates certain cities and just does not want to go there. He's
but
like,
it's
if you want
just
to
like,
sign
how
me,
does that player warrant that? I don't know. That's why I was asking.
I don't know
like,
either.
No, the chart.
I have no idea, but the Penguins have several players with like modified or full no
Mhm.
trade clause.
Yeah. I know Maple Leaf fans are very upset about losing him, but this is the one, right? Like we talked about, Dubas is going to bring at least one player over from Toronto's roster last year that's available in free agency. We kind of like, if it was going to be a top 6 guy, Michael Bunting would have made sense. He's going to be in the Metro with Carolina.
You mentioned that, by the way. I'm not. Oh yeah, Kerfoot would have been cool, but I'm not even gonna lie. Whenever the Reilly Smith trade happened, I just saw Reilly to Pittsburgh in some tweet, and immediately my head went to Morgan Reilly, and we traded for him.
We're just trying to have like the most offense from defense, but the least amount of defense.
Yeah. And that also will come up later on when we talk about the Penguins.
Yeah. Now, okay, here we go. This is going to be in order, like I said, not necessarily the most significant. So the next one was Tristan Jarry, 5-year deal. What was the cap number? 5.3 something, 5.375 per. 28 years old, won't be a UFA now until the 28-29 season. So this is that they lock up the goaltender that is going to be their number one, they believe, for the rest of the course time in Pittsburgh. I went on Hunter's show, Locked On Penguins, after free agency as like a recap. He asked me what my initial reaction was. I thought I was being punked. Like I was waiting for Ashton Kutcher to come out. And listen, I love Tristan. Think he's a great guy. I think he has a ton of talent. I don't know how he got 5 years. I don't even have an issue necessarily with a number, because it's like the 12th highest cap hit among goalies. That's fine. I think that he's in that range of goaltender. But 5 years, I mean, that is them saying, we feel really good about this guy's health. Like, we think he is going to be 100% healthy. This degenerative hip thing people were talking about, whatever, we're not concerned about it. This is a huge gamble by the Pittsburgh Penguins, and one that I didn't see them making up until 24 hours before free agency started, when I was reading Josh Yohe's article and something from Rob Rossi, and I was like, oh man, they're bringing Tristan back. And here we are.
Yeah, I guess Josh was right that if by a certain time on Saturday, Tristan Jarry was not a Penguin, or was not signed, he was going to be going somewhere else. And I did not see this happening. This contract, I could talk myself into them bringing him back, but the contract they got made absolutely no sense to me. Like 5 years. And that, like you said, that's the thing that is so confusing and baffling, that they gave him a 5-year deal, because I wouldn't have given him more than a 3-year deal, and probably more likely would have liked to give him a 2-year deal. Yeah. But it's crazy to me. And I guess if you got to do what you have to do, and like we say with free agency, you kind of have to do what you have to do at certain times if other teams are going to sign Tristan. But it is so weird to me that a goalie who has had health issues for the past couple of seasons just comes and gets a 5-year deal just very easily. And I understand the Penguins were in a tough spot too, because they had a problem where there was the goalie market itself was overall just absolute crap, and you're going to have to trade for one and give up valuable assets to get a number one on the same level of Tristan Jarry. And that's the thing. I'm not even concerned about his level of play, like when he's healthy. I think he's fine, but he better be healthy. And I think this thing could, like, there's, and then this might seem redundant, but there's only 2 ways this is going to go. This deal is going to look like a fair or maybe even like a really good deal by the end of it, or in year 2, this deal is going to look terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. Like I said, I would have given him 2 years and whatever that AAV would have looked like. I would have been fine making him one of the higher paid goalies in the league for 2 years to get him back, but I wouldn't have wanted to give him the term. My bigger issue was going to be the term. I don't even know what else to say about it at this point. Like the 5 years is just crazy, but I don't know. I don't think I brought it up on here because I think I told you before we started recording weeks ago that I couldn't talk about it on the show. Now that the time has passed, I talked about it on Hunter's show. Ron Hextall was ready to give Tristan Jarry a very similar deal to this during the season last year. They were very close to a 5 or 6 year extension within the same range in terms of the number. Ron Hextall was also very upset when other members in that front office said they should look to acquire a goaltender at the trade deadline. So Tristan Jarry was Ron Hextall's guy. It's just really interesting now to see that he's Kyle Dubas' guy as well, because we thought they were going to go in a different direction, like we said, up until like 24 hours beforehand when it started to look more and more like he was going to return to Pittsburgh. To your point, their hand probably was forced a little bit by the market, but I absolutely hate that. I mean, we said on the show before, I think we both, I said it, I thought that you agreed, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. I said, I reached a point this past year where I couldn't bring back Jarry no matter what. I would have rather have just lived with how bad the goaltending would have been for a season if it really came to it without Tristan Jarry, if it meant like the Smith was, playing a lot more than he had to, and you have a back, let's say what the Smith and the Delkovich, that would have been awful. But I would almost rather do that than have given Tristan Jarry a 5-year deal. And it could, like to your point, it could play out. He could live up to this contract. He could exceed it based off that cap number for sure. And what we've seen him do in the past. But man, it's a gamble that the entire organization has made.
He could have missed part of this upcoming season, could miss games in year 2, and it could look that bad that early. And it's all based on his health. I'm not worried about his stats. I'm not worried about how he looks when he's healthy. We know what kind of goalie he is when he's healthy. He's worth the $5.375 million. But whenever he's not healthy and he's not in the net, that's the problem. And when he's playing hurt as well. We don't need him to play hurt. I'd rather just have the healthy goalie out there. It's a baffling contract. I think that, and I'll say I agree with you. At a certain point, I was just ready to hit the reset button and be fresh. Just get some new faces into the locker room and into that net, because it had gotten stale after the past playoff series that we had and last season when we didn't even make the postseason and Jarry had injuries, especially down the stretch, littered with injuries. I was ready for something new, and it's nothing against Tristan. I don't want to hold his injuries against him, but I am like that. That's the reason that I was ready to move on. Plus all the past performances. Now it's like put up or shut up time, because you got your contract. Now you better perform. And there's really no other option now. You better show that you're the guy. Otherwise, this is going to be the first major mistake by Kyle Dubas. And I hate to put it on him because he was just kind of dealt this hand as soon as he got here. But
yeah, but again, I understand that it's a product of the market. By the way, people were like, who is he bidding with? Tristan Jarry would have gotten this contract from somebody else if it wasn't the Penguins. Let's just get that out of the way. Regardless of if you wanted your team to be the one to do it, I wouldn't have wanted to be the team to do it. He would have gotten it somewhere. So we can put that to rest. But I understand he was kind of backed into a corner, but that doesn't mean you don't play to that market. You can't make decisions based off that. So again, they got to feel really good about where he's at health-wise.
Would you have rather had a Matt Murray reunion like was being flirted with than have this contract?
I mean, he wouldn't have been the number one. I don't know how much he would have played.
Would he have been the number one if it was him and Casey?
I don't think so. I think he's that broken.
Yeah.
I think he's cooked. And
it's
a shame.
That was just funny. Just hearing that. I think he's cooked.
Yeah, like in a serious tone. That's normally thrown. But yeah, it's hard to wrap your mind around this playing out the way that it did, but we're here, and Tristan Jarry for 5 years. We'll see how it goes for them. They were no stranger to giving out term. Ryan Graves, 6 years, the next contract here. And also, speaking of no movement or having some clauses here, he's got a modified no trade clause from this season up until the end of 2026 that includes a 12-team no trade list. And then up until his contract expires in the 28-29 season, he'll have an 8-team no trade list. Ryan Graves, good player. Actually, I got something for you guys. Let's take a look back at one of the clips from last week's show.
So if I'm just going to throw one more name out there, been heavy on this guy's train for a while, and especially if you're going to let Brian Dumoulin go, which might happen, I would say is likely to happen. Now New Jersey goes out and gets Tyler Toffoli. They got to still re-sign Timo Meier. If I'm Kyle Dubas, I'm like, hey, Ryan Graves, why don't you just come right over here and we'll plot you right next to Chris Letang on our top pair, and you can just be 6'5" and kill people. So that I think is a good idea too. So those are some of the guys that I'm crossing my fingers for. I think, the other side of it is 31 other teams want to sign him too, right? So like you just have to hope that it works out for us.
We have Penguins Jesus, and now we have our prophet in Josh Getzoff, because that was prophetic. He called it. He called his shot, and he nailed it.
Yeah. Good thing he didn't land on the Tyler Bertuzzi or Michael Bunting or Garnet Hathaway. The last one he threw out there, and Ryan Graves is the one that stuck. So Ryan Graves, good player. Oddly enough, his pairing mate over there with the New Jersey Devils, John Marino, former Pittsburgh Penguin. I think you look on Ryan Graves, he's an interesting player because you look at, the underlying stuff, and it's not necessarily great, but like there's certain things about his game that are very high, like 80-something percentile in terms of firing the puck at the net for defensemen. He likes to shoot the puck. That's never going to be a question. Also in the 90th percentile in terms of penalty killing. There are things there to work with. He's also really good in transition. I think what they see is the perfect partner for Chris Letang. They see another Brian Dumoulin within him that they can get out of him playing within this system. I think it's more about that than the player himself. I think they take, if that makes sense, I think they take a look at what the player could be within the system as opposed to what the player has been with New Jersey. I like Graves, think he's a good player, don't necessarily think he's a great player. I think the cap hit is fine, but again, I go to 6 years for this player. I guess that's just a product of July 1st in free agency, because ideally this is a guy that you're getting for, 4 years max, but he gets 6.
Yeah, and I mean, luckily he's one of the guys that we signed that wasn't over the age of 30 or at the age of 30.
Yeah.
So there you go, helping that average come down. I like the signing. Like you said, the term, it is what it is. That's just kind of the nature of free agency. But this is a Brian Dumoulin replacement, and even bigger Brian Dumoulin too. He's 6'5", 220 pounds. Josh is right. He's literally going to go out there and kill people. And I think that'll be an element to the defense that has been kind of missing overall. I don't think that they've had a lot of players with that physicality like Graves can bring. And I'm looking at his JFresh hockey card, 82nd percentile in goals per 60 when he's on the ice. Yep. So he's not a bad player. I think he's a very productive player, and I think in the Penguins system and paired with Chris Letang, I think that could be a really good pairing. So I think this is a great move, and I like that there was no even entertaining the process with Brian Dumoulin. It was also after in that post free agency, that press conference for Dubas, him and Zucker, Dumoulin and Zucker were the ones he thanked immediately for their service in Pittsburgh, which is basically saying, we'll be seeing you. You're not coming back. Which, that needed to happen. And I think this is good new blood to bring in. And I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to see what he looks like with the Penguins, because like you're saying, this is something that they're probably looking at, that they think they can get some untapped potential that they weren't able to get in New Jersey like they can in Pittsburgh. So we'll be curious. Although then again, when you look at it's like the opposite with John Marino. He suddenly was starting scoring again whenever he got to New Jersey. So maybe they'll do the same thing with Ryan Graves going the opposite way.
Yeah. I do want to take a step back though. I'm glad that you said about Dumoulin and Zucker, because I think we would be remiss if we didn't, mention how much we appreciated their contributions, obviously at different times. Like by the time Zucker got here, Dumoulin, you were already kind of starting to see signs of him going in the wrong direction. But those cup runs, Brian Dumoulin, I mean, he's my favorite player in those teams just because I'm always the guy that like, I want to find the most underappreciated, or who I envision as being the most underappreciated player on those teams. And that's my guy. Brian Dumoulin, no one viewed him as a top pairing left-handed defenseman, and he was for a team that won back-to-back Stanley Cups. He ended up being the best piece from the Jordan Staal trade going all the way back to 2012. So shout out to Brian Dumoulin. He lands on his feet. It's a new deal in Seattle, so we will see how that plays out for them there. They could probably shelter him a little bit better than he was able to be in Pittsburgh. So shout out to Brian Dumoulin, and then
another
Zucker,
former Pittsburgh player going to Seattle, by the way.
Yeah,
that's just Pittsburgh Junior. That's what that is.
The landing spot for Zucker is really odd. It's like they're signing him to have him be a trade chip at the deadline. So like I'm already thinking about, can we trade back for him at the deadline this year?
And retain salary?
I love Jason Zucker. I think anybody that like, is a Penguins, maybe the national media doesn't pick up on this as much as everybody else and everybody in Pittsburgh, but what a guy to have on a team. I mean, just the ultimate good guy, fun loving, always squirting the water bottles on the guys when they're doing the pregame skate interviews and stuff like that. Just loves to have fun. One of the very few personalities on the Penguins, and I feel like in hockey in general. So Jason Zucker definitely will be missed. It was great that, for last season, he was actually able to remain healthy and have the season he did, to be able to get, another $5 million in his bank account. So
yeah,
happy for him.
Well, you mentioned too that he was one of the only guys that had like personality, or one of the best personalities of the Penguins. But like this year, whenever the times looked the darkest for the team, he was one of the only ones that you could tell that he was putting in 100% effort every single time he was on the ice. And you could see the energy that he brought to the team. So as a fan, I really appreciated that, even though the Penguins were not playing well and had several losing stretches. He never let that get to him. He always gave 100% effort, and you could see that in the way that he played. So I appreciate Jason Zucker a lot. And this is actually, people can make fun of me for this. I actually DM'd him on Instagram and just wanted to thank him personally from myself, because I was like, from even outside of a hockey perspective, like I just feel like he was a guy that really brought all of himself to the city of Pittsburgh. Like he just engulfed the city as well. And so I just wanted to thank him for that, and that he'll always have a fan of me, even though it didn't work out in Pittsburgh like we had hoped.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, don't close the door on a reunion at some point. Like, I think that it's possible for sure. But shout out to Jason. Wish the best for him with the Coyotes. As we were talking, it kind of reminded me too. I wanted to bring up real quick, Patrick Hornquist retiring from the NHL. Another member that the Penguins do not win those cups without. Obviously, scored the clincher the second time in 2017 versus old team, the Predators. You remember when that James Neal deal went down, like how underwhelming it seemed on the surface to be getting him and Nick Spaulding back for a 40-goal scorer. And the Penguins won that trade just by the Hornquist part of that. So what a player, what a career. One of the few guys that played the way that he did in front of the net. We haven't had that presence since then. It's been something that's been missed. Obviously, it's very unfortunate for him that I feel like he didn't get to go out on his own terms when you look at how his time in Florida went with the concussion this past year and everything like that. Very unfortunate, but what an underrated player he was. 901 games, I think. So, but shout out to Patrick. Got a couple Stanley Cups to show for it.
Yeah, and I think that he is a very underrated player when it comes to like those cup runs, because you look back and obviously Hornquist was a great player, but I just don't feel really think people realize how much he just changed the way the Penguins played when he was on the ice. Like I do not think that the Penguins win those cups if Hornquist is not on the team. Like when that trade happened, like obviously Neal was a great scorer, but Hornquist really changed the way that the Penguins played. And he was one of the guys, like you said, introduced that net front presence. I mean, honestly, probably one of the best net front presences or at least that score goals around that area, because I feel like the Penguins hadn't scored goals around that area in such a long time. Sid's like one of the only people that scores goals around the net front. Him and Jake, they do a great job at it, but they're not the ones that should be doing
though. It's, the hand-eye. He's not really like getting – he's not throwing his body around in front of the net and taking those licks as much as –
I think he changed the way that they played, and without him, they don't win those cups. There's several guys that you could say that for, but definitely Hornqvist is one of them, and I appreciate everything he did in Pittsburgh as well, because especially like I say, without him, they don't win those cups. Without him in 17, they definitely don't win that cup, or at least they might not. We don't know what would happen in overtime. So it's thank you to Hornqvist.
We always talk about Kessel when we talk about the Penguins power play not being the same. I think, Hornqvist too, not having that net front element on the power play. I don't know that it's as glaring as what the power plays looked like sans Kessel, but it's definitely there too. Like, no Hornqvist has been very evident in terms of the net front presence.
Yeah, because then you have like the two guys that I mentioned going in the net front. Like you have like Jake, who shouldn't really he's not the same way that Hornqvist was on that power play in the front of the net. And then you have like Sid that goes into the front of the net. But those are two guys that shouldn't really be there. They should be more on the outside. You should have somebody else. So yeah, that's definitely a thing that I didn't even think about the power play, and that's definitely something that's been lacking for the past several seasons. Power play in the whole has just been depressing.
Yeah. All right. Back to free agency where, all right, we got Tristan Jarry, we got Casey DeSmith. Goaltending's probably taken care of. Nope. Alex Nedeljkovic signs immediately along with Ryan Graves. That news breaks on a 1-year contract. What was 1.5 or something like that?
Million.
Or 1.5 exactly. Talking about this one with Hunter, it's interesting because obviously had that great run in Carolina, but you or I could probably play goalie in Carolina and be all right. With the way that they play defense and they insulate their goalies, and then was awful with Detroit, but who isn't? So it's you have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, maybe the best environment for a goalie to play in, and one of, if not the worst for a goalie to play in over the last few seasons. So what is Alex Nedeljkovic? It's hard to figure out. My mind did. The Smiths getting traded. They say that that's not necessarily the case. They could run with 3 goalies at the NHL level or something like. They actually signed a 4th goalie to a one-way contract. Now that only matters for his salary making the same, Hellberg. But I don't know. I feel like this is the move to set up Casey DeSmith being traded. And Kevin Weeks, even at one of the first things he said when they opened up their free agency frenzy, was talking about goaltenders that are available for trade, and he mentioned Casey DeSmith. I think his name's out there. I think he's available.
I think he should be, because I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but the last few seasons we've had some previous starters come in and be backups, but they're also guys that I could see just bringing in and being at the AHL level as well, like Tokarski, like Louis Domingue. Like those are guys that I don't necessarily think they automatically mean that Casey DeSmith would have been traded. Nedeljkovic, I just feel like that is the case. I feel like he's going to be
Why
traded.
would he sign here?
I don't think it makes sense for them to bring him in otherwise.
Yeah, and why would he sign up for that? Why would he sign with us in free agency?
Exactly. I don't think that there's any other possibility besides Casey DeSmith's going to be traded. I don't see you carrying a 1.5 million goaltender at the AHL level. I don't. And so if you're going to have that goaltender, then the other one better go. You're not going to carry 3 goaltenders. I don't care what they say. They could say that we might carry 3 goaltenders at the NHL level. Bull crap. You are not going to do that. Especially when all of them make over $1 million. None of them are making league min. So and none of them can be carried down to the AHL level and make an AHL salary. You're going to be paying for them either way. I just think that this means Casey DeSmith is going to be gone.
What's interesting about this, and I don't, I can't disagree, because again, I don't think you can continue to run it back with that same duo. Like Casey DeSmith has been a better goalie than Alex Nedeljkovic. Like
Yeah.
if they were flipped, if they were both free agent goalies and you could have either one, Casey DeSmith hadn't played for the Penguins yet. Like we didn't have that body of work. We didn't have the view of him that we do. You're picking Casey DeSmith every single time when you put their numbers against each other.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's just, it's a tough situation. The Penguins can't sell that tandem to the fan base again.
No, let's sell this new one with a worse goalie and a 5-year contract.
Hey, I mean, yeah, that's true. There's probably no real way for them to sell it with.
I don't think
Jarry
they're
on
selling
anyway,
it.
but
They're just saying like, it is what it is. You have to deal with it.
We don't
There's
care
no
about
other
our
way around
fans.
it.
That's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying. FSG doesn't care about their fans.
Hey, we thought that way before the Dubas hiring. So
That's true.
maybe it's all being brought back up. I don't want to spend too much time on that just because, I don't know. We'll see. If Casey DeSmith gets traded, that will obviously be a topic on the show, and we'll have to dive into what Nedeljkovic is, because Nedeljkovic, especially with, Jarry's availability or lack thereof for the last few seasons, he could be very important to next year's Penguins team if Casey DeSmith is traded. Now this is the one, literally, like, I didn't like either part of this deal. Basically every other deal, I either liked the money or I liked the years, except for the Nieto one. I was cool with both. For this deal, I didn't like the years. I didn't like them signing the player in general. Lars Eller, 2-year deal. What was it? 2.2 per or 2.4?
2.45.
Oh man, even more than I thought. 2.45 per. 34 years old, Lars Eller. I mean, if this is like the 2018 version of Lars Eller, great deal. He was great for the Caps, especially in that Stanley Cup run. Now he is an all defense, no offense player who, based off this deal and what they're saying about him, they are expecting to be their third line center. I do not see it. I think that what you got is, a bottom six now that we, have pieced it kind of all together. Obviously they could still please move Granlund, and there could still be some other pieces involved here in the bottom six. But I look at it right now, you are better defensively for sure. I think you got some guys that can kill penalties now as opposed to last year. I don't see the offensive upside still. Like, I don't know that there's that much of an offensive difference from last year to this year if they go in with what they have.
I think they're high if they think that he's going to be their third line center and be productive offensively, like they would hope a third line center could be. Because from what I've seen, they basically said we're not really concerned with getting as much scoring out of the bottom six as we could be, like a change from last year. Like, they're changing players for sure, but like I don't see a huge difference in scoring from this bottom six, especially with Lars Eller. I don't see it. You get better defensively, but you get I think, well, I guess if you're comparing him to Jeff Carter, you're not really getting slower. But I don't think that you're getting speed. And I think that it goes against the grain of what Dubas was saying that he was going to look for in players with talent. I don't see it with Lars Eller. That's confusing to me.
I think this was Sullivan. I think Lars Eller's probably long been a Sullivan guy. Now it's weird because I don't know that he necessarily fits Sullivan's system, but I think he really likes what he does defensively. He likes that he wins faceoffs and he likes that he kills penalties. To me, you got to get some more offensive upside within that bottom six. And there's the chance that if he lives up to, his potential and the pedigree, maybe Alex Nylander can pop for like 15 goals or something like that. Maybe Drew O'Connor takes a leap this year. But I want to have another discussion about those guys. But anyways, I don't see the offensive upside within the bottom six. That was the entire point of that. Lars Eller on this deal to me makes no sense and obviously the player has to be willing to come here too. But for less than 600,000 more, Matt Duchene signed in Dallas. Like, what are we doing? Like, I mean, and not even just Matt Duchene, there's other players there too. But 2.45 for what Lars Eller brings to the table, I can't get on board with it. I don't like it from the years or the money.
I don't either. And I don't like it from the perspective of this, they're expecting him to be the third line center too. Like, if they came out and said like he's going to be our fourth line center and it was less money, I'd be perfectly fine with it. I think it'd be fine. But the fact that you're paying him 2.45, and you're expecting him to be your third line center. Also, if he's going to be a third line center, what are Granlund and Carter going to be doing? I think that the bottom six is getting a little crowded now for guys that are not good anymore. And what do we do with them? We have too many of those types of players, and I think we just might have signed one. At least I don't want to say he's not good anymore, but just like defensively he's fine, but offensively I don't know what you're going to get from Lars Eller at 34 years old.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I like Noel Acciari, but if you don't sign him, you sign Duchesne to be the 3C, and then you sign Lars Eller to be the 4C. That's fine, I think, down the middle. But
you probably signed him because his penalty kill is 92nd percentile on Jay Fresh's card. That's why.
Yeah. I think that they were looking for a Teddy Bluger, and I think that's what they
could have signed Teddy Bluger.
That's true. Where did he went to Vancouver?
Yeah,
like Vancouver signed him and Ian Cole. Like, of course.
Dude, what is it with the West Coast signing these former Penguins?
Well, Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin are both there, so.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
But you could have got Teddy Bluger on a 1-year deal at $1.9 million.
That's the same discussion about the goalies, though. They can't bring that same player back. They had to make a change just for the sake of making a change.
You could have just said, we're going to carry 4 bottom 6 centers. That's what they're saying with the goalies.
I think you're expecting that there's going to be no drop off from the top 6 next year, which is just like unfair to those guys. Like,
it's unfair to a bunch of 36-year-olds.
Yeah. But okay, so now let's talk about this bottom 6, because you've kind of been hinting at it. Like, where is everybody going to play? Like, right now you got Nieto, Acciari, Eller. He just signed. Those are 3. Nylander, Drew O'Connor he's going to arbitration, but Jeff Carter and Michael Granlund. That's 7 names I just said, right?
Yeah.
Who's not playing out of that? If they're all on the roster.
As of right now, I'd probably say I would say the one that I would want to play, honestly, almost the most, and it's Alex Nylander. That's the one that I think gets scratched.
See, it's a name that I wouldn't want it to be him either, but I would think it's Drew O'Connor. And the only reason I say that is because while we didn't have a GM, Sullivan was the one. I know that Wilkes-Barre Scranton's assistant GM or whoever it was had to ink the deal, but Sullivan was pushing for Nylander to be back. Josh Yohe was just talking about this with Hunter. Sullivan really likes Nylander. I think he's going to be a staple within the bottom 6 next year. I'm worried that it would be a Drew O'Connor, who I think also needs to be a staple in the lineup. But we're both on the same page.
He should be.
We're both on the same page that it wouldn't be Carter or Granlund, and it should be.
You're going to have a third line of Mikael Granlund, Lars Eller, and Jeff Carter. And you're going to tell me that that's good enough? You're going to seriously ice that line and tell me that we think this is the best third line we can assemble?
That's tough.
Tough? That's despicable.
So hear me out on
this. You have a guy who can't skate, you have a guy who can't score, and you have a guy who can't do either of them.
And you have a guy that can't put his own clothes on in the morning. Jeff Carter's that old.
Oh. I was like, where are you going with this?
It's preposterous. Good word by me. That as of right now, looking at it, they got to find a way to do something with Granlund. And by the way, I still think they're going to.
Okay, well, Dubas does not seem thrilled about the idea of buying someone out.
Another window did open, so good job to bring that back up.
Yeah, he doesn't seem thrilled about the idea of buying someone out. So do you think that they're going to trade him? And if so, what are you going to trade him? Not necessarily for, but what are you going to package him with? Because I don't think you can just trade him straight up.
His contract expires before Karlsson's, right? So if he's part of that deal, it allows and he makes a lot less. So it allows San Jose or a third team to take that on and not have it as long.
I like the idea. I think
I'm trying to
a
sell.
very attractive idea.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time believing Mikael Granlund's not
here's
going
the
to be a
thing, too,
Penguin
with,
this
like,
season.
Well, I think we're going to see one of him or Petrie moved. I still think that's first off, Kyle Dubas' favorite website. I say that jokingly. Cap Friendly has them in the negative by about $1.5 million right now in cap space. Like, they literally have to do something to be cap compliant. I still think at least one of those two is going to be moved. I'll be honest. You can say that I'm just getting my hopes up. You can call it hopium. You can say whatever you want. I think Erik Karlsson's going to be a Penguin. And I think one of those two are going to be in that deal, whether it's them going to San Jose or a third team.
I'm all for it. I mean, let's just let the fun begin. That's what I would say with Erik Karlsson, because I've thought about this. To me, and granted, if they move Petrie, then that changes my thought a little bit. But I thought if they trade for Karlsson, that means that someone like Marcus Pettersson is going to be on the move.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want that, because he's been your best defenseman over the last couple seasons, and your most consistent one, especially health-wise last year. So I wouldn't want that, but I just think the idea of Erik Karlsson is just so much fun.
Well, here's the other part of it, because we just talked about how little offense they're going to be getting from their bottom six. Like, you got to find offense from somewhere.
So you might as well have the highest scoring on defense.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to find ways to change this offense.
Him and Letang are going to combine for 150 points.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I'm at the point after a season where you don't make the playoffs where I am just all for anything that's exciting. And Erik Karlsson, trading for him, that is an exciting move. So I am all for it. Hopefully that could get. I would rather Granlund go, just because I wouldn't want him to play. But I think it would make sense if you're trading one of your defensemen.
Yeah,
and
I mean, you're going to be making. You're going to have Petrie at 6.25 as your third pairing right-handed defenseman, and then what do you do with Ruda? I mean, you'd have to move him in a separate deal, I guess. I don't know. There's just, I think that Petrie. Yeah. So actually, let me go back, because I said I think one of the two of them, Petrie would be part of the deal. Whether that's, I think actually San Jose is on his no trade list, so that's why a third team would definitely have to be involved.
What does Erik Karlsson make?
11.
Is anything going to be retained?
Oh yeah,
like that's
yeah.
Like there'd definitely be stuff retained, right?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, they were saying somewhere like in order
he had
to make
101 points last year. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
he had 101 points. Holy cow! He outscored Sid.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to be in at least a 30% retained range, and you get a third team involved, retain some more of that. If you can get him between 7.5 or like 7.5 to 8,
4 more years.
Yeah, and I think you get him around the 7.5 to 8 million.
All for this. I just think it would be a blast, or it might be terrible. But either way, I'm willing to take that gamble.
That's the thing, is like all offense, no defense when he's on the ice. But that's why he probably hasn't had a partner that's in. And people are going to think I'm crazy for saying this. I know I've always viewed him higher. When is the last time he had a defensive partner that is as good defensively as Marcus Pettersson? Like, I think he's going to be able to stabilize that a little bit.
I agree. You know, he could be his Brian Dumoulin to Chris Letang. So
I would have it be Pettersson, by the way, because I don't know. And I just need to watch more of Graves. I would trust Pettersson more with Karlsson and Graves with Letang.
No, I think that Letang is going to look at Graves, see 6'5", and be like, "Yeah, he's mine. That one's mine."
Yeah.
No,
RPS best 3.
I am all for this, but looking at the bottom 6, I would think that Acciari to me would probably be the 4th line center.
Yeah,
and then I have Nieto on the wing. Which wing? I don't know, probably right wing. And then you'd have Nylander or O'Connor on the other one. I envision that third line as just the old, slow. Why can't we just make that the fourth line, honestly, and just make the other one the third line?
I mean, they're not going to be good regardless of if you want to call them third or fourth, but yeah.
Granlund better not be on this team. There's no way he can be on this team. If Dubas does not get rid of him, he needs to be in jail.
I don't know if you knew this, but Dubas tried to trade for Granlund 2 years ago in Toronto. Now, Granlund was obviously a much different. Yeah. Granlund was obviously a much different player, but Dubas could view him a little bit differently than everybody else does. Maybe he sees him as a reclamation project.
I don't think you should be taking on many reclamation projects when you have a 36-year-old Sidney Crosby, a 37-year-old Getty Malkin, and you're trying to win cups.
And I don't know that for sure. I'm just like knowing that he's tried to trade for him before. He's still on the roster right now. He's kind of pushed back against the buyout thing. You know, I don't want him on the roster next season. I wouldn't for sure say that he's not going to be.
Maybe they can package Granlund and Petrie. So one of the teams get Petrie and the Sharks get Granlund. There you go.
Yeah, they still get out of 2 years early. For like Granlund will be off the books 2 years earlier than Karlsson is. Mm-hmm. So
moral of the story is Karlsson needs to be in Pittsburgh. That would just be the most fun.
I mean, he's got to get traded. The Sharks are not going to pay him $11 million for the next 4 seasons at the beginning stages of a rebuild. Yeah. Makes no sense.
And he requested it. I mean, obviously they don't have to accept it, but
they're letting him talk to teams. Like he himself has talked to the Penguins and Hurricanes.
How soon would you get a jersey?
Mike, what number would he wear? I bet I mentioned this to Sarge. Only worn 68 in the NHL, right?
I think so.
So what number would he wear?
He wore 65 at one point.
Oh, you're right.
He wore 65 with the Sharks.
Oh wait, he was wearing 65. Oh, why was I picturing him in 68?
I don't know. He wore 65 with the Sens too.
Yeah. Now that you're saying it, 65. Why was I thinking 68?
Clown him in the comments.
Because I even texted Sarge, didn't say anything about it. Not that like he would know anyway. But I was thinking, oh, we're about to retire Yager's number this year. How's he going to wear 68? And then, who the heck? That's crazy. I can literally picture him in that jersey too. But not that once I started thinking about 65, I was like, wait, he wore 65 for sure in Ottawa, and then you said San Jose, so I was like, that's the number he has worn. Oh boy. All right. So never mind. That works. 65. Ron Hainsey, Penguins legend, old number.
When are we going to retire that?
Okay. So switching gears, we're not gonna hit the 10-second break.
Yeah, we can just.
The first thing I wanted to bring up was Roansy Contrereas. He got optioned as we were recording, though. So, like, it's kind of pointless to even bring up what do you do with him at this point because the Pirates have answered that. You send him back down to the minors.
It makes sense.
I'm not out on Roansy by any means, but right now he's got nothing to offer the team.
The dude's struggling a ton.
Yeah.
It made sense to send him down. At least maybe he can gain some more confidence in AAA, and from there on out, you can gain some confidence down there. Bring him back up to the end.
He's got to add a third pitch down there.
Yeah, he was like you're saying. He was bringing no value to you as an MLB player. He's not going to be bringing value as a starter, not bringing any value as a bullpen. At that point, you need to send him back down. We talked about his lack of a third pitch a couple weeks ago. That's going to be a struggle for him until he can develop one because MLB hitters are too good. If you only have 2 pitches, they're going to be able to hit it. Especially as a starter, if you're throwing 2 pitches, after your first time through the order, they're going to crush you. So they need to be able to to help him develop that third pitch and get him back to the MLB level. And hopefully he can be a productive pitcher. And I don't even care if it's a starter. If he's a productive bullpen arm, I think that would be fine. But out of all of the trades that happened, Roansy was like the one piece that came in that was a like more than ready player to come up, or like a better piece, and that was the Tyon trade, I think. So I think that's one that where you were hoping that could be a productive MLB player, and he's had some really good starts in his time as an MLB player, but as of the past 2 months, he's just been complete trash, honestly. So
yeah, I mean, the velos, he was throwing 92-mile-per-hour fastballs last night.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad. It makes perfect sense why they optioned him. Hopefully he can do better.
The move was to reactivate Key Bryan, who's back playing third base and leading off tonight. So that's good news.
That is good news. That is good news. And we also got Reynolds back since we last spoke, which is also good news. Getting some of these injuries back.
Obviously, Henry Davis, early signs look great for him. Can we talk about I'll be honest. I am not somebody that was like a huge fan of Jack Sawinski. He might be the only player that I've watched get better with Andy Haynes as the hitting coach.
No, I think that makes sense. Jack Sawinski at the start of the season was due for either a home run or a strikeout, and there was nothing in between. But he's actually developed into more than just a home run or strikeout hitter. So
he draws walk. He doesn't chase. Second lowest chase rate behind Juan Soto in all of baseball.
Really?
Which is crazy. Yeah.
Like on the entire season?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
He doesn't swing outside of the zone.
I mean, good for you, Jack.
19 home runs this year, which is obviously they need some type of thump within that lineup. I will say, so I have one gripe with tonight's lineup. It is, I would love to see Jared Triolo, who's come up and played a really nice third base in the absence of T. Bryan. He can also play short. I would like to see him at short and then Gonzalez at second instead of Rodolfo Castro in the lineup. Because you want to talk about struggling, Rodolfo Castro has not provided much for this team. And it's unfortunate because we both really liked him coming into this year.
What, you don't want a guy that's batting 103 in your lineup over the past 2 weeks? I don't know why you wouldn't want that.
I feel like at this point, it's pretty clear that he's strictly a guy that needs to get some at-bats versus lefties, if anything. Like that's what he is.
Yeah, probably. I'm looking at the rest of the lineup for tonight's game. I wanted to see who they had catching. Jason DeLay. Batting 154 over the last 2 weeks. We've got some heavy hitters. At least G1.
But I don't think tonight's lineup is all that bad compared to what it could be. Like I don't think this is a bad lineup.
Yeah, no, and I think that you had just mentioned him. Nick Gonzalez has looked a lot better overall than what we thought what we thought over the past couple or his first couple games. So glad to see him come up and be productive because we had major concerns about that. That he was going to struggle a ton. Yeah,
the strikeout rate is what got me. I thought he was going to strike out like 40% of the time based off what he was doing in the minors. So, see him putting the bat on the ball, collecting a ton of hits. It's obviously great. Like I would keep this thing going. You've seen Davis come up and be productive. You've seen Gonzalez come up and be productive. Triolo's obviously been like hit or miss with the bat. I don't know that you expected a ton from that perspective. Played a really nice defensive third base. Keep it going. Where's Endy? Like we're seeing proof that guys can get better at the major league level. Let's keep it rolling.
I agree, especially when I brought it up, and I'm just going to continue to update everybody on their batting percentages. Jason DeLay is, like I said, over the past 2 weeks, batting 154. Austin Hedges, though, got above 200. He's 217 now. So congrats to you, buddy. But
all-star snub.
And also Jason DeLay, his on-base percentage is 154. So if he's not getting a hit, he's not going to walk.
Yeah.
So
he's definitely, remember, he was hitting like 308, and I was like, this isn't sustainable. And here we are. So
that 308 is his slugging percentage, actually.
Crazy. And then real quick, the last thing I want to bring up with the Pirates is Keller and Bednar, both all-stars. Keller was originally Bednar replacing Clayton Kershaw. Bednar made it last year. It's still awesome, obviously, to see him get that nod certainly deserving. He doesn't get to pitch as much as a lot of other guys around the league, obviously, being the Pirates closer.
Yeah.
But Mitch Keller's the story here. I mean, obviously, just to see how far he's come since we started this podcast, like the days of saying that this guy's not a major league pitcher to maybe he's a bullpen guy to maybe he can be a back end of the rotation arm to being an all-star. What a story this has been. If there's one thing about the Pirates that has been good, I mean, obviously, you know, he's not going to be great every time out. He's had his ups and downs for sure. But if there's one real feel-good story to take away from this Pirates season so far, it's Mitch Keller.
I absolutely agree. And you could see what it meant to him whenever he was.
I wasn't
he
expecting
was an
that.
all-star.
I didn't know that he was like that, like an emotional guy like that. That's cool.
Neither did I, because all of the time he just seems like cool, calm, collected. Doesn't really let the highs or lows get to him. But I thought it was really touching to see how he reacted to being an all-star. You could definitely tell that it meant a whole lot to him, and it's like a childhood dream come true, like being an all-star in the MLB All-Star Game. So that's awesome, and awesome to see Bednar getting to be the first replacement on the National League roster. I like that he left Kershaw some icy light and best brew in Pittsburgh.
If it was mango, I could get on board, but.
Have you had
Kirsch.
Have you had the icy? I don't even know what they call it. The tea.
I tried it once. Not good. That was actually that
But
might have been the
sponsor
last.
us.
That was the last. I haven't drank any sip of alcohol since the NFL draft.
Well, there you go.
I tried it that weekend, and that was like the last night that I drank alcohol.
Good for you.
So, yeah, it's not like I don't drink alcohol, so I'm better than you type of thing or anything like that. I don't even know what made me stop drinking. Like I just haven't had the desire to, so I'm just trying to go along with it.
Well, it's the complete opposite of the month you turn 21. I remember that. So,
my God, yeah. I made a joke about that actually recently. Hammer and Hank on Twitter said something about, dang it, what was it? Something about a round, or I can't remember what it was, but I quoted it and just said me when I turned 21.
I don't know, but I just remember the month you turned 21, you were at Whiskey Rhythm, literally 30 days in a row, the entire month of June into July. Yeah. You could say you had a problem now.
Oh, Hank tweeted, so it was the bases were loaded, and he just said loaded again, and I quoted it and said me when I turned 21.
That's basically what it was.
Good times. Not really. Anyways, I think that will wrap it up here. No Steelers talk, and we still went for an hour and 12 minutes and change. But a lot of good Penguins information. Would love the next time we talk to be talking about Erik Karlsson being in a Penguin sweater. So make it happen, Kyle. And then, Kyle can come on here and talk about it too. So get this to Kyle.
You can talk about the Granlund trade. It won't even be notified as the Karlsson trade. It'll be the Granlund trade.
Yeah. I mean, he'll probably get as much praise for acquiring Karlsson as offloading Granlund. So I feel like that's fair.
Probably.
But yeah, Tyler mentioned there's going to be some links in the description of this. We are kicking off year 6 of Rocking Around the 412. So the link for that will certainly be in there, included with the other ones as well. Donate. Obviously, no announcements have been made yet in terms of the types of prizes or anything that we're going to be giving away. The Salvation Army in Rochester, PA is going to be a big part of our mission. Their angel tree that they do every Christmas. They don't start doing that until like October, so I'm way ahead of them. But our fundraiser has kicked off. Still looking for families, of course, to go along with that too. So if you are somebody that's going to be in need this holiday season, if you know somebody that's going to be in need this holiday season, please feel free to reach out to either of us personally or on our joint account Around the 412. Follow us on all of our social medias, including our Threads account. That's all Around the 412 everywhere. Like and subscribe right here on YouTube, or if you were listening somewhere else, be sure to subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review, all that good stuff. That's it. Do all that for us. We'll be back next week to talk to you about, maybe we'll try to include some Steelers talk next week. We'll see how things go.
Training camp's coming up.
Train camp is coming up. Maybe that's what we'll talk about. Probably not. But we will see you guys next week. Until then, for Smitty, for Tyler, this has been Around the 412, and we'll see you then.